Coming up on this episode of Tom Talks Rubbish.
If I think to myself that what I say has some relevancy, then I'll still put the content out because I think that sometimes I might see or think something that I haven't heard anywhere else. So I think for that point, yeah, I'm going to put that out and I'm going to say that in something, even if it happened 3 or 4 days ago, because the people that do follow the channel, they might appreciate that what that's been said and what that's been put out.
What's going on, guys? It's your boy, Tom Talks and stand back for another interview. This time, I'm joined by the one and only Steve from the SCW Wrestling channel. So, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Honestly, I'm really pleased to be here. Thank you for the invitation. You've had some big names for interviews on this channel. Like I've seen the likes of Chris Van Vliet, we've seen Wrestle Talk, Cultaholic, amongst many others on your channel. So I suppose the question is, what am I doing here?
No, you're here because you do very good work, my friend, and I'm excited to chat with you. So, if we take this back, Steve, where do you first discover wrestling as an overall fan?
All right. So for me, that goes back to the early 90s to 1992. So I was 6 years old, and I remember there was a movie with Hogan and Zeus that was premiering on, like, I think it was that Sky Movies, something like that. And just before the movie started, there was like a advertisement for WrestleMania 8. It was Mr. Perfect on the screen, and like he said, like, "Oh, come on, watch WrestleMania 8." And I was like, "Oh, this is kind of cool." And I remember saying to my mum and dad, "Can I watch this?" And they were like, "Yeah, yeah." But and they told me because they were aware of wrestling. They said, it's predetermined. It's a story. They know what they're doing. Don't copy it. You hurt yourself. All that kind of stuff. And I remember watching the show. And I didn't watch it like when it was on Sky at that point because it was past my bedtime. I was 6. But when I did get to watch it, like all of a sudden my brain was just differently wired. I think from the start, where a lot of kids when I was watching wrestling with them, they were like, "Oh, did you see this person body slam this person, or the Undertaker's dead," or something like that?" And it's like, no, they're characters, and like there's a story behind it. And I just had this different perspective early on, and I think that if anything, that made my fandom stronger earlier because I don't want to say I was peeking behind the curtain, but it just made me have like an understanding. And for that reason, like I was kind of gripped. And I remember like 92 as it went on, there was SummerSlam that was in Wembley Stadium in the United Kingdom. So, a bit of that local passion you get, even as a young boy. I didn't get to attend the show live, but I remember the British Bulldog in the main event winning the Intercontinental Championship against Bret Hart. And that matched just the idea of family, the storytelling, two great wrestlers as well. The UK coming out on top. Come on, let's be patriotic here.
Yeah.
Set for life from that point. Fandom was there.
Just to go back to that conversation with your parents, you talk about that
Yeah.
rewiring your fandom there, Steve. How important, looking back to where you are now, how important do you think that conversation was before you started watching wrestling?
Massively. I don't know what the fandom would have been going forward because if I take this seriously, like in like with the question you're given, like now I do content on YouTube. I'm
Mm.
talking about wrestling on a regular basis. A lot of my content is revolving around the topical storylines of what's going on, potential direction of where it can go. I've always been someone that's been looking for the next step. I was always someone that thinking, where does this go? And sometimes there would be some bad times in wrestling, and God, there have been some bad times over the
Oh, yeah.
last 30 years. And you sit there and think to yourself, right, okay, well, how can maybe that story be improved or what can it be done? And I think that was something that really intrigued the fandom where I think I would have got to a stage where, say, I was like 10 or 12 years old and I was watching Papa Shango, for example, like doing voodoo on someone in the middle of the ring. I don't know if I would have believed it when I got to a certain age. So I think the idea of knowing that this was character, it was spectacle, it was story, and technically, inadvertently, because my parents aren't wrestling fans, they were giving me Vince McMahon's vision of what he wanted because that's what it is. It's entertainment, it's storyline, it's
Yeah.
not sport, which I think a lot of when you're young, you look at it as sport, where actually I looked at it as entertainment. So I think that's what helped the fandom because, as I say, like I look at things from a different angle than perhaps what I would have done at that age.
Do you remember a moment in school where your friends were like, okay, this happened, and they're like, I don't want to use the word fate, predetermined. We'll go with that because
Yeah.
that's the better way of phrasing that. You knew it was predetermined, and your friends were had bought in, shall we say, thinking it was
Yeah.
real. Do you remember a moment where you almost wanted to go, guys, you know it's predetermined, right?
So it was almost the reverse because, like, for me, I kind of where I was okay with it. I just enjoyed everything. Like I said, there was good, there was bad. I mean, if we're going for old school fans, how long have you been a fan, Tom? If you don't mind me asking.
2009.
2009. Okay, so some characters I could mention are a bit before the time, but still, with the maybe with the network, you may have been unfortunate enough to see one or two of these characters in your time period. But for example, a Bastion Booger, for example, a man
Oh,
that
yeah.
was just a basic slob. That was his thing. To sit through a Bastion Booger match in like '94 was a struggle for even the most diehard of fan. But I
Mm.
mean, like, for example, when your friends would turn around and say to you, go, mate, did you not know it was fake? It's like, well, yeah, I knew it was like predetermined. I knew that this was a story. So it was almost like I kind of, where I knew that, I was happy to keep watching, where I think a lot of my friends that were younger that were watching wrestling, the moment that clicked in, that was the moment they checked out, at least until the Attitude Era.
Mm. You talked about there. Are you a fan of Magic by any chance? Because I've had this conversation with someone before who said, oh, being a wrestling fan's a lot like watching Magic. You either, once you hear that how the trick's done, you either are like, I want to watch more and figure it out, or you're like, I don't want to watch anymore. The illusion's broken. Does that make sense?
It makes total sense. I can't say I'm someone that was a follower of Magic, but going into that wrestling fandom again, we're gonna get a bit nerdy here. I know Nigel McGuinness is a big like Magic
Mm.
guy outside of wrestling. I know he does his own shows and stuff. He did an interview, I think last year. I want to say it was with Chris Van Vliet. I want to say that, and he was giving a lot of the illusions and talking about that stuff. And I must admit that interview was very interesting. But I haven't personally got into myself. But if I was to answer it, I wouldn't say I think it's interesting to know the trick, but of course, yeah, the illusion does go a little bit, I suppose, once you know.
I think what's great about that interview, just for a second, is you can see Nigel's itching to tell him, mate, I've got a match booked or something like that.
Yeah,
But he almost doesn't want to give the surprise away. I think that's what's really cool about that interview. If you watch it back in hindsight, if you know what I mean.
absolutely. Yeah, something probably I should do because I know that he was being asked a lot about the idea of returning to the ring. You know, I think Brian Danielson, there's a lot of teasers around that time period as well. I know he came back in, was it the Casino Battle Royal, all in 2024 with
Yep.
the Oasis screaming out in Wembley? Oh,
Yep.
magical moment. Magical.
Yeah, it was. So you talked about the Wembley and things like that, and then we went to the Attitude Era. So when wrestling became a lot more less PC, more violent, shall we say, were your parents still okay? Are you watching this?
They were fine, mainly because they, let's be honest here, I don't know how aware they would have been of what was going on your TV screens at the time, but I think the favorable thing for me is I was growing up at the right time. So I was entering my teenage years at that point. Again, I'm probably giving age away here. Hopefully not as old as I look, people, if you're watching. But yeah, like I think I was hitting in at the right peak time for that stuff happening. So rather than being someone that would have been of a very young age watching this stuff, like I said, I'm starting to probably be on the same wavelength. I'll be honest, I mean, I'd probably watched a small part of ECW probably about a year before the Attitude Era. And I think that was also through the collaboration of Raw and ECW. To say that I was instantly gripped to Rob Van Dam was an understatement. So the second I'd heard of this other company and then found it to see a clip and to see a match of like RVD and ECW was massive at that point. The problem though with watching ECW back in the 90s, for those that know, especially if living in the UK, it was not on mainstream channels. And if you were to watch, if you were lucky, it was very late at night. So you were up way past the bedtime. It definitely was not going to be a school night, if you know what I mean.
Oh, definitely. As a father yourself now, do you look back on the way your parents explained wrestling to you and think of anything your kids might be into that you're like, because my parents explained that to me this way, this is how I'm going to treat that with my kid, if that makes sense.
That's a really good question. I think that if there is a way you can enhance some enjoyment or to explain something, I think it depends on the craft. Obviously, wrestling is it's a very niche thing.
Yeah.
It's something not everybody understands. I think that's always a good part of it as well, because you can talk to the random person about wrestling and they don't get it. Even if you can sit there and explain it to them, they still probably don't get it. But like with if you'd have match up with other things, if there are things that I think that can guide and help along the way, why not try and help and try and enhance that passion, enhance everything? I think it's certainly a way. I mean, for me, if we're going behind the curtain further and outside of wrestling, um, I am someone who is quite into the idea of entertainment, for example. So if there are anything of tips or anything like that, say my child was interested in that, of course you try and give them advice the best way you possibly can, or something that might give them a stepping stone or help them along the way.
I understand what you're saying completely there. How does your fandom sort of change as you start living in other countries? Because we spoke about this a bit off camera. You lived in, was it the Canary Islands for a
It
number of years?
was. Yeah, it was. Yeah. So, for those unaware, I left the UK. I was living there for the first 20 years of my life. And if you can do the maths, you can work out how long I've been gone since. I will not give that age away here. But yeah, just because I want to keep, but it's an illusion. People call it magic. But no, at the same time, like, yeah, I've been in the Canary Islands, and I must admit, that was my only real when I first moved, my gap of fandom, if you will. At one point, I had a period where I couldn't watch, and then I couldn't watch pay-per-views. So that was like I got maybe Raw and SmackDown, but I couldn't see the pay-per-view. So it was like I had to find the way to read about the results to get the connect the dots. So it changed the fandom apart. And I got to a certain age as well. I think it's natural. Other things become more interesting. For example, maybe nightlife, for example.
Yeah.
But for me, I would say that when you look at, like, as time goes on, yeah, the fandom changes, but then I think also with age, fandom changes as well. Your preferences are things that you like when you're younger to when you're a teenager to when is now. I think they can be different.
What is sort of your gap in knowledge of wrestling then that you're like, ask me about this, I know what I'm talking about, but because of where you lived for a number of years, what's your sort of years of gap that you maybe need to fill in if you're asked?
So thanks to
That
the
was a
WWE
very wordy
Network.
way of asking that. I do apologize.
It was, but it's very well worded though. I explained perfectly. My weak zone would be 2006. That's when I made the jump. So I had about 4 months where I was out of the scene, I would say, completely. I would read WWE.com to get results. So that's how I kept up with what was going on. And then fortunately, I think it was Taboo Tuesday. I managed to finally get in because that was a show that I could see. You would be lucky. I'll probably get to see about 2 or 3 shows a year. But your Royal Rumbles, your WrestleMania, your key ones, I missed out for about 5 years. But I've caught up now, thanks to the network. When I got the network, say 2016, 17, whatever it was, my first ball of action was like, what did I miss? There we go. I'm going to catch up. You know what I mean? So I've seen stuff, but yeah, I do have some grey areas probably around there.
What's something that you go back and watch, Steve, that you're like, oh man, I wish I was watching live during this point? And then what's something that you're like, yeah, thank God I wasn't watching during this point?
Big Show being stuck up Vincent Mann's ass probably is one I'm glad I didn't see it live. But yeah, no, I would say, that's a really is again great question. I think to see live, in general, I was a fan at this point. I didn't watch it live, but I watched it the following day. Would be King of the Ring. Oh, hello, what's happened here? Hello,
What's happened?
I don't know what's happened.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yes, can you hear me? I can't see you.
Oh, I can still see you.
You can still see me. Okay.
Yeah,
Well, if you can still see me, then I think we're okay. Apologies for anything that's gone on there. I can take it from like a gap so we can start again.
no problem. We'll get that edited out. Anyway, so we were talking about like not being shoved up Big Show's butt and things like that. And then what is something that you go back and you're like, oh, I wish I was watching during that point.
So yeah, I mean, to where I wish I was watching, I would say probably I'm going to go with ECW in a One Night Stand 2006. I mentioned big RVD fan. He winning the title against John Cena. Around that time period is where I had to check out through the movement. And so I didn't really get to see a lot of RVD's title run. So that would be probably an area that I would have liked to have seen more live. Um, but I mean, as a fan, I mean, there were great moments in general that I would love to have been live for. I mean, Taker versus Mankind, King of the Ring '98. I would have loved to have been around for Money in the Bank 2011. Punk walking away with the WWE Championship from John Cena. There was some great moments through history. But if I was to go through that specific time period that I was out, RVD as champion is certainly one that, yeah, it's a shame not to see because he never quite got to that mountaintop again.
Mm. What about now? Where's your current fandom? How I'm curious to talk about this because obviously I don't know how it works in Sweden. How do you consume wrestling, things like that? Where's your current fandom?
So I consume wrestling through Netflix. That's my way of keeping up to date with everything. So for Raw, SmackDown, NXT. And I've got PLEs as well. So I'm covered in all ways. I've had the WWE Network for a long time as well. So that while that was existing, that was my way of keeping up with everything as well. But yeah, I mean, fandom for me now, I do my best. You mentioned I'm a parent, so obviously I have to be very strategic when I watch things. I'm in a different time zone as well to certain audiences that can watch wrestling live. So I never can watch it at the same time anymore. Work usually establishes of when I can watch, but I do my best to keep up as best and well as I can. And yeah, I mean, with regards of doing content as well, that's where I try and make sure that I'm as up to date as possible because I want to give my audience the opportunity to hear stuff that is up to date and to know that, yeah, what they want to talk about, I can give them what they need.
Mm. You talked about the watching it for Netflix. Does that mean you're strictly a WWE guy then?
So, not strictly a WWE guy, but I would say at this point, time allows WWE more than the rest. AEW, I will watch when I can, but it's not always a possibility at the moment, which really it's annoying because, like, I think when you look, for example, at a couple of years ago, All In, I attended with my best friend James, who is also a podcaster, but on YouTube with his channel. I'll give him a shout this week in Metropolis, and obviously was around with a co-host of mine, Nick Steve, as well. We both went to go and see All In at Wembley. But since then, as I said, being parenting and stuff like that, I don't get the opportunity to see everything. And WWE has always been the company, if you will. So that
Mm.
one I give the full dedication to. But AEW TNA, I mean, I'll watch anything really. If there's the ability and the time to watch it, I'll sit and watch it. But time isn't always. I'm in that stage of life at the moment where I think that some other priorities have to come above.
I 100% agree with that. But I want to make it clear because you get the crazies in the comments. Steve is not saying he wants AEW and TNA to die. You're
No, not
right.
at all. Not at
Like
all. No, I'm a
you're,
big fan of both. In fact, if you want the favorite wrestler of mine right now, of course it's Will Ospreay,
Mm.
Ariel Assassin, Essex Boy. Well, just as well like myself. I don't know if the guy's ever had a bad match, so that just screams. By the way, opportunity to support AEW. I'm always there, and I attended All In for goodness sakes. Of course, I'm supporting other wrestling. So yeah, but no, I want all wrestling to succeed, but. Time wise, and obviously it's the biggest company, WWE. So if you're going to do content, you're going to go where I think most people want you to be focusing your attention on.
I understand that, Steve, but we get crazies in the comments. Do you know what I
We,
mean?
we got, as Seth Rollins once said, let's get weird. Do you know what I mean? So I'm happy for it.
Do you understand what I'm saying? I'm just getting out there before the crazies in the comments do.
Absolutely, absolutely, indeed, my friend.
So you talked about your podcasting and content and stuff. How does your journey as a creator begin, shall we say?
Good question. We mentioned him already. My best friend James. We've had a friendship now since the mid 90s, and we've always been into wrestling. We've always had like phone calls for like hours talking about wrestling, football, not soccer for those from the States. We talk about the things that we always were quite into, and there was always be long conversations. And James as someone that's understood my fandom, but he has a similar fandom as well. He's interested in the stories and the storylines. And I think it's just something that we always connected with. And I remember, like, I want to say around 2014, 2015, I'd mentioned about some creators that would be out there, like, oh, they've come out with like this backstage gossip, because that's usually the stuff that I would look for, was the backstage stuff. And we'd discuss that stuff. And I remember, like, we would always talk about storylines and stuff like that. I remember just one day he turned around and said to me, why don't you do YouTube? Like, you have like ideas out there that are different to what happened on TV. Why not share those ideas? And I remember, like, at the time him saying to me that, and I was like, I could do that. But then I was someone that was working quite a lot at that point, and I thought to myself, would I be able to make it work and balance the two? But ultimately, the bug got me. I did a video, 2016. I thought was an exciting time in pro wrestling, because we had like, well, we had the draft come back in. We had all these signings come in. AJ Styles, for example, debuted at the Royal Rumble, which was the first week that I did content. And that was also like, AJ's I'm a big fan of his work. So it was things like that got me into starting. And then the bug kicked in pretty quickly, to where I then started chasing that YouTube vision, if you will.
What do you mean for those that, for the, as I call it, civilians? What do you mean chasing that YouTube bug, my friend?
So I think for those that do this, they will understand that. I think if you put a camera in front of you and you put the content out, there's nothing more exciting than the feedback you get off doing a video, and sometimes the buzz of release. Is it a video that will do well? Is it a video that will do bad? Is it something that people want to talk about? Is it something that people just ignore it completely? There's been a few of those, especially around the start. And I think that is something for me that is quite exciting, because the topics I talk about, I tend to find myself thinking like, well, I think they're interesting, so I'm putting them out there. Does other people find them interesting? And I've come to learn over time with YouTube, it's not all about just, the idea of putting the video out there. And that's why, I mean, I've had a couple of attempts at YouTube. Probably a thing I should mention at this point, I've had a couple of breaks from YouTube as well, due to, I don't know, maybe, I remember one point I was really busy with work, and I would say that I didn't understand YouTube in hindsight at that point. There's more to it than, like I said, just releasing a video and hoping it does well. There's putting in keywords, there's finding yourself searchable, marketable, that sort of stuff, which I'd still even say to this day, I'm not perfect at, but it's something that I always now strive to try and improve with. But yeah, I think for those that are looking and saying, well, what do I mean? I'm someone that's also worked with entertainment, so I get a buzz off of doing something, whether it's being on a stage, whether it's and that's YouTube is like a platform like that, and wrestling is a passion that is different to, I think, like I said, like maybe for example, if someone's a singer or someone is a radio host or a podcast or whatever, and it's like, but wrestling is something that's, I've had it since the childhood, and it's been with me, and I've had ideas, fandom, dare I say, nerdiness over it for a long time, and just to get to express that with other people who feel the same. I think that's a pretty cool thing, and I think it's I think that's where the bug started, and that's where I kind of, I don't want to say chase the dream, but like obviously I wanted to put my mark on the platform, I think is where I'm trying to go.
I understand what you're saying completely there. Why was, because it sounds like you had two attempts beforehand, why was the SCW podcast sort of the thing that hit for you, and the thing that you're like, yeah, we'll do this for a while?
So to give like how the channel worked out, it started as Steve Chats Wrestling. That's where it started in 2016. And as I think I didn't understand fully what I was looking to do. I think it's probably the best way to put it, because I found myself putting out videos of things that I thought maybe were fantasy booking related, and like I said, storyline stuff that I would talk to my friends about. That stuff didn't connect as well at the start, and I found that the videos that were connecting were topical stuff. I remember my first 1,000 viewed video was Eric Young debuting in NXT. It'd been a pre-recorded taping, no one had seen it, and I was someone who worked late hours at this point, so I would probably have the opportunity to put something out the same time that you'd have a American audience watching, and I think that that's a hot time to as well. This is probably the biggest. It's the biggest and most live market when something goes out. They have the best opportunity of that grabbing that market because it's on live at their best time. Where for us in the UK or in Europe, we're at stupid o'clock in the morning. But I worked stupid o'clock in the morning, so I had that chase. But yeah, I think as time went on, I found myself like doing videos of what I thought people wanted rather than what I wanted. And I think as time went on, then I realized that actually this isn't what I want and what my channel to look like. And from that point onwards, I took a break as well because I was busy with work. And then I remember, fun enough, Twitter was what kind of drove me back in because my Twitter account, I didn't really share the social medias. I shared maybe the videos here and there, but I didn't really use other social media amongst it was just YouTube. So when I started growing on Twitter, where some of the things actually broke through with, I don't want to say viral or trending, but certainly got people reacting. Then I started finding, well, hang on, what do I want to do with my channel? And something I've always said that I like my channel to be is interactive. I want people to talk. I want to have conversation with people, whether that's me on my own talking to my comments or questions I get in, or whether it's with hosts and co-hosts as well. So my channel dramatically changed in 2019. And at this point, it probably already long changed to SCW, the wrestling channel, which, still, if I'm honest, I don't think it's the most best trending channel name there ever is, but that's my name. It's what I go with. And I find that when I look at when things move forward, I always loved a Q&A. That's what I always wanted because I would watch some other people do question format stuff and I'd think, oh, that's pretty cool. And that's what I wanted my stuff to be like. So I then started with a weekly Q&A. That's how I got through to the pandemic. And of course, magically 2020 hit. We have COVID. I wasn't working. I was stuck indoors for a long time. And then the bug hit again. And when the bug hit again this time, all of a sudden, I've not looked back. Let's put it that way.
You talk about the bug hitting. How much did that come with just reconnecting with Steve? Because I know you guys went to school together and things like that. How much did that bug help you reconnect with, shall we say, old friends and like, yeah, let's have you pop on the podcast every so often, man?
Yeah, one thing that I loved about first off with the pandemic, it opened my eyes to having more than one person on the channel. Live streaming was something that became an option as well. Being in the Canary Islands, the internet was not the strongest tool in the world. So there wasn't always the blessed way of doing things. But I got to meet a lot of different podcasters that were going through the same stuff. Obviously, with COVID going on, we'd all collaborate together. Before you knew it, you felt like you were in a bit of a community. And I think that's when I felt like I felt more at home with it. I felt more connected to it. And I think that there's still people to this day that I speak to 5 or 6 years later. But like you said, the idea of reconnecting with Alex Steve was amazing because I've had obviously my best friend for years, James, who would pop on the channel here and there. And then I have another friend from school as well. I have connections with still as well, called George. He did YouTube for a time, but he stopped doing it. But when he was doing it, he had NXT on the channel. And I would have both George and NXT on the channel at different time periods. And I don't know, as time went on, myself and Steve, we spoke more. At times we think very alike. Sometimes we don't, and I think that just makes for magic content when you can have stuff with two different ideas, but also at times being able to meet each other in the middle as well. So, and since becoming a parent as well, the time to sit down and edit videos is so much more difficult than it was back then. So live streaming has become the forefront of the channel. It is the best way for me to create content at this point. And NXT has always been such a great person to want to get involved, and he's always been such a good friend and so supportive. And we've just been able to, like you said, reconnect that friendship from a long time ago. If anything, I'd say it's stronger today than it probably ever was. And it's through doing this. And honestly, I say to him all the time, like I'm so thankful that he is on and we talk and that we get to do this stuff. And it usually doesn't matter what the content's about either. We do topical stuff, we do retro stuff, we do Q&As. It's predictions, reviews, and it's a fun time. And I think that for me, that knowing that he enjoys it as much as I do as well, I like to think we create good stuff. And yeah, it's like I say, as a friendship as well. Like, I mean, I'm so grateful for where we are today.
That's really, really cool, man. How is your chemistry different when the red light goes on to compared to like if you're just chatting in the lobby, if you know what I mean?
We swear a lot more when the red light's not on. I can say that much. But no, we try and keep it clean on channel if we can. But and there might be the odd word that comes out here and there. But like, I feel that for us that it's the same, and I feel that that's what's so great about it. We can talk about the shows when they're on. We can talk about it when they're off, and we can talk about other stuff, and it's always the same. And I think that it's sometimes people are lucky if they find friendships and that when you meet people like that. And I like to think that I've got that sort of friendship with NX Steve, and then I've got a couple of people in my life that I consider they're almost like brothers. I'm an only
Oh yeah,
child, but they are like brothers, and I'm eternally grateful for that.
that's really, really cool. You talk about the content and the balance of being a father as well. How do you sort of say to your missus, okay, I need to go do this tonight, like I'm podcasting with Tom, for example, recording the show. How do you balance everything?
So I'll be honest, one of the keys for YouTube, I keep hearing from a lot of content creators, is consistency. It is a lot harder when you are a new parent, and especially when I think someone like myself, I mean, if you have a slot, one show a week, one day, one time, that's cool. But I have a situation with work as well, where currently my schedule changes on a weekly basis. So when that schedule changes, that means you have to ride with when the opportunity is there. And thankfully, my wife is very understanding. It does mean with content, especially, I mean, you would know with yourself now while we're doing this interview at this moment, that I like or think it's better to do the content when my little one is sleeping. That way we don't get so many invasions in the conversation. But yeah, it does change things, but at the same time, I think that you learn to understand that maybe I, as a content creator right now, can't be as trending as always I want to be. But if I think to myself that what I say has some relevancy, then I'll still put the content out, because I think that sometimes I might see or think something that I haven't heard anywhere else. So I think for that point, yeah, I'm going to put that out, and I'm going to say that in something, even if it happened 3 or 4 days ago, because the people that do follow the channel, they might appreciate that what that's been said and what that's been put out. But obviously, certain parts of certain things, you have to pick and choose your battles. For example, I've mentioned already, love the fantasy booking video. Absolutely love it. John Cena's retirement tour. When that thing kicked off, I was so desperate to sit down and put a video together and try and come up with all these crazy ideas of what would be really cool for a John Cena retirement tour. Unfortunately, I never got the round to doing it, because by the time I could do it, the tour had already kicked off. Everybody else has done that video as well. So it's not possible to throw that idea out there. I can say that I wanted a heel turn, and damn, it was done. It was the way it executed Elimination Chamber was better than I could have ever created. So, fair play to them for that. But like, it's moments like that of picking and choosing your battles. I think that's the key with what you're doing, with what I'm doing right now. But I certainly make sure that if it's something that is important, or I deem to be important, because hey, it's the audience that matters if it's deemed important or not. But if I think it's something that's worth putting out there, I make sure it goes out there.
What has been your sort of biggest? Okay, I'm going to put this out there because I've got a different take to
Yeah.
everyone else, sort of thing.
Um, it's hard to say. Weirdly enough, my best performing video is a Ring of Honor video, which is mad to say. It was Where Will They Go? Because the company was unfortunately dying back in 2019, and it was just speculating where I think, you want the wrestlers to have work. It's always such a shame when you see people being released. So you try to, say like, I think they may fit in well here. This is what they may do if they go there, and who they can compete with, and who they can maybe team up with or have storylines with and have great chemistry matches with. And something with that video must have connected better than all the rest, because to this day it's still the best performing YouTube video that I've done.
Mm. I understand what you're saying completely there. How do you deal with burnout though, Steve, as a creator? And like, I'm supposed to record tonight, but it's like 11 o'clock here in Sweden and I'm tired. Do you know what I mean? And like family burnout, work burnout. How do you manage it all?
I push through a lot of the time. I push through. If there is a time that I know, maybe a week or two ahead of time, that's like that looks like that's the day that's going to work with that week, especially for a bit of live content, I will push through and do it. There are times where, for example, you have to know that maybe you shouldn't. And I mean, nothing is ever posted usually without it happening a lot of the time. I think only one retro show that we were going to do has been postponed, but it's still going to go out. But we tend to make sure that if we are doing something that we keep that out for the subscribers and for the viewers that do follow the channel. But yeah, burnout can be tricky. But yeah, I tend to push through. There's always another day we can sleep. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. But like, what I'm more curious to talk about is like, what if there's a show, but like you got to do something with your kid and things like that? How do you sort of make your content timely, but also I'm trying to think of the right word, but I know what I mean. Like balance everything, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, as I said, I've come to realize that I'm not gonna be the guy. It's very rare I'm gonna be the guy where I'm the first video. As particularly, let's say it's a pay per view or PLE review, for example. I'm not going to be the first channel to get out there because 99% of the shows happen at a different time zone.
Mm.
And like you said, even if there's a Saudi shows are usually the shows that are, or perhaps the European shows. And like you said, I'm a family man. I will put the family first. There are times that I'll put
Yeah.
that first. This ultimately, end of the day, is a hobby. Is it if it's something that could take off and there's 100,000 people want to subscribe to it? Absolutely. I'm not going to
Mm.
say no to that. Do you know what I mean? Like that would be amazing. But I'm well within knowing this is hobby, this is fun. And I think that's the thing. It has to remain fun. There was a time when, like I said earlier in the interview, like this, I would say it wasn't fun, but it wasn't the content I wanted to do. So as long as it's something that I want to do, I'll always make my way where it will be fun and it'll be fine to do. But I'm always of understanding that other things will become priority at this stage of my life, and I will get the content out when I can. And I think that I think with the viewership that I do have, a lot of them know that and understand that. Especially if you watch a live stream Q&A, for example, that's a time we have the opportunity to be a bit free in our conversation and explain certain things because we know that people are watching live in time. It's not one of those pre-recorded things where most of the time people can just hit the red button, but it's a good place to have that. And I don't know, it's a difficult where it can be that balance, but I find myself making it work by just keeping it fun.
Mm. You talk about the other creators you connected with in COVID and stuff like that. Who are
Yeah.
the ones that like maybe they're smaller that you want to give a shout out to, or maybe the bigger ones that you got to work with that you're like, how the hell did that happen?
Well, unfortunately, I can't. Unless my memory is not serving me correctly. I don't think I've worked with anyone that's got to 100K subscribers or anything like that. But obviously, I know you're a fan of Tom Colohue. I've collaborated with him a number of times, but I would say WrestleMania UK is someone. Mex is a fantastic content creator. I've always got a lot of time and love for the work he does and for the opportunities we have to talk together. It's great to see the journey he's personally been on, following him over the last 5 years. From having random chats about AEW or WWE during COVID to then seeing him now being a part of Gorilla Position on a weekly basis. And can't say I can watch every show every week or listen to every show every week, but I will do my best to catch him when he's there. And yeah, it's fun to see what people can create and what they can do and where it can lead to. I'll give a shout. I want to give a shout as well to someone that's always been. I mean, there's so many creators that have always been great. So for people I'm leaving out or not mentioning, I still love you all, and I think you're great. But I will give a special shout as well, though, to a guy called Kyle. His show's OTM, not the tag team from NXT. It's on the Mark Wrestling podcast on YouTube. We collaborated actually after COVID, but
Mm.
just someone from the States, I think he's like an Indiana guy, goes to Chicago shows a lot of the time. To have collaborated with him for like maybe 20, 30 times over the last 2, 3 years, from someone you'd never met before. And then you have such a understanding and agreement and just fascination, with conversations you have over just this simple thing. We all enjoy pro wrestling. I think it's awesome. So yeah, there were so many out there I could mention, but those would be the couple I'll mention now.
That's really, really cool. What is your advice, Steve? Because you talked about that this is your third sort of go on YouTube and things like that, and it's finally clicked and you're finally doing the content you want to do. What is your advice for people that maybe are struggling with their YouTube journey and things like that?
It's never a bad thing to take a break if you think you need it. You should always listen to what you are doing. You should always feel like that every journey is individual. Your journey is your journey. Like some channels break through, they're really quick, they rise overnight, and they're huge. And sometimes I think some people can get caught in headlights. They're chasing these numbers. And if that's what people want, great. There's ways to study it, there's ways to find it out. But I think there's so many channels now that do all this stuff that you're recommended to do, that I think it's still hard to break through for that reason. So I
Yeah.
think the most important thing is to enjoy what you're doing. If you enjoy what you're doing, then I don't think you lose. Obviously, sometimes it can hurt and it can suck being a content creator that you can put a video out that you think is some of your best work and it doesn't connect as well. And there can be a video like I said, I mean, that Ring of Honor video I put out was put on a random Monday. And all of a sudden, I remember going to work, coming home and seeing this video that I'd politely thrown together. It was not even, in my opinion, my best work, and it had like 8,000 views sitting there when I got home. I was
Mm.
like, "What?" It was double checking 3 or 4 times that it was correct. So like, it's making sure that you enjoy what you do. Take your time if you need to. If you have the ability to be trending and try and do things, then cool. But do what works for you, because there's different ways of doing content to when I started as well. Like now we have YouTube Shorts, we have TikTok, we have you can do long podcast content, you can do medium content where you do 10-minute videos. It's what you find is your niche, what your market is, and what you want to talk about. And as someone who's a wrestling guy, this possibly might be why you're still, into it this late in. So thank you for doing that. But like, if you want to talk about Raw, you talk about Raw. If you want to just be NXT, do that. If you don't like any of it and you're pro wrestling Noah, that's your game. Stick to it. Have fun with it. Don't chase this ideology that you think of what you need to do to get there, because ultimately you're not going to feel that satisfaction if you get a view on something that you are not feeling is you. And I think that usually one of the content creators that I tend to watch and tend to like, you can feel when it's organically them with the content they're doing. And I think that sometimes shines through. And that's why you see some of them do so well.
I understand what you're saying completely there. While you were talking, I've been racking my brain on how to bring this one up because it's
Go
a
for it.
conversation that I had with your co-host earlier. He sort of brought up the fact that it's your podcast. He's just a visitor in some ways. So, do you feel that way, or do you feel it's more of a collaborative effort and he should give himself more credit, sort of thing?
I think at this stage he should give himself more credit. Yes, I started the channel. Yes, when it comes to editing and a lot of that sort of stuff, it's the stuff I do, and I do more solo videos when I can as well. But NXT was a massive part of this channel now. Like I said, it's like a brother. There was a period before I came a dad, a few years ago, and I had a period where the channel was doing well to get monetized, and he said to me, "Whatever you need, I'm there. We're getting this monetized. Whether you need me to be on there for an hour, for 3 hours a day, we will do the content. We will do Q&As. We'll do whatever you want." And I mean, for me, that was like, how would I dare say this is just my work? And the thing is, I've always said as well, like when I look with the audience as well, it's their channel as well. Like if they're watching it, there's a chance that they're interacting with it because that's what the channel. A lot of it's based around. Q&A format is the way that a lot of the channel works and operates. You know, when you look at, for example, like even a prediction show for a PLE, I'm asking their picks in the comments as well. It's not just me and Alex Steve talking; it's them as well, and I want their takes on certain things. And sometimes their creative suggestions are, they're better than ours, and they can spark conversation, or they give us to think a different direction. And I love that stuff. That gets the brain sparking and creating. But NX Steve, he's modest and polite, bless him. But no, he's as much of this as I am at this stage, as far as I'm concerned.
Taking it away from the content for a second,
Go
what
for it.
does he mean to you overall?
Great friend. At this point, we talk about things other than wrestling. We will have our frequent WhatsApp messages. He's a great guy. Like I said to you earlier on, I mean, I'm grateful that we have been able to reestablish our friendship at this stage in our lives through this, because even if I didn't do content tomorrow, we'd still be like this. So I'm grateful for that.
That's a beautiful way to end this, if I'm honest, Steve. But as we do, because believe it or not, my friend, we've been talking for 45 minutes, and I
Wow.
do want to so talking on camera for 45 minutes, and I do want to be respectful of your time, my friend. I have two sort of questions before we do the generic and wrap up questions, if you know what I mean.
Go
Do
for it.
you view the podcast as a success? And what would you want your legacy to be?
So people judge success in different ways. I'm happy with my channel at this stage of the game because of the fact that I'm happy with the content that goes out. I think that's a reoccurring theme. Um, could the channel be more successful on viewership, on numbers, subscribers, revenue? Absolutely. And would I be against that happening? Of course not. So if you're watching this and you've never seen anything before, like I said, it's an interactive channel. Feel free to come and join us. It's always a fun time. And like I said, it's a variety of topics, and for viewers, their voice gets heard. But for me, I'm happy with where the channel is right now because, like I said, even if it's maybe not as consistent as I want it to be at this stage. I'm happy with the content that goes out, and I enjoy it a lot more now. Especially the fact that I did content a lot of time on my own for many years, and it's fine. There's nothing wrong with doing that, but at the same time, I think it's always more fun to be talking to someone about
Mm.
what you're
Oh,
talking
I
about
hate doing
because
solo videos. I hate
yeah,
it.
you can sit there to a camera and you might turn around and say, I think that this is the greatest idea since sliced bread, or I think this is going to happen, and then someone can turn around and say to you, but I think this, and you go, oh, hang on, tell me more, because all of a sudden what that person has said makes me think differently. And I think that we once we get more information about certain things, or we get given different ideas, our opinions and perceptions can always change. And as I
Mm.
said, my channel is an opinion based channel, so yeah, I love that stuff. So yeah, but no, I'm very happy where the channel is at this stage. Could it grow? Absolutely, but if it doesn't, I'm still happy.
What about what you think the legacy of your channel is, my friend?
Good question. Maybe the Q&A guy. I don't know. For a while, I was a lot of the people I would talk to referred as like he's the Q&A guy. But I would like to think that creative ideas is something that shines through a little bit because I don't know. I like to think that some of the ideas I put out are kind of good. Maybe not all of them. I'm sure some of them have sucked along the way as well. But yeah, I like to hope that people at least enjoy what's coming up from a creative standpoint, because that's the biggest passion of wrestling. I think when you look at, for example, the moves are really cool when you can watch a really great match and someone could do a triple like a moonsault, somersault, springy, whatever move. You know what I mean? And it looks incredible. But if you look at the detail and the context of story that goes through the matches that grips you towards the end and what can lead to go next, that's the stuff that I'm hooked into. So to give that creative ideas out there and what I think is good and where it can go next, that's the stuff I hope people can cling on to and say, yeah, I like this channel because I like their ideas.
I have a very, very self-indulgent question. before we do generic wrestling questions and things like that. As a great podcaster yourself and things like that, where can I improve? What did you enjoy about this conversation? Everything in between.
Oh God, but the thing is, what I really like about you, Tom, is that I think it's quite clear that you've got great attention to detail. I think that I love that throughout this conversation that we've had, you are very good at like taking something out and making a question out of it and keeping the conversation rolling. We've flowed this, you said now for what, 45, 50 minutes, something like that. It's felt like 10. And I think that that's naturally a sign of a great person that's in the chair that's asking questions. Clearly, you're not new to this and you have gained a lot of maybe you may have always had this. You know what I mean? Some people are born with this stuff. I really have enjoyed this interview. I've enjoyed sitting here and just chatting away with you. And like I said, like, I mean, I could have done it for an hour more, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
so
I
I've
understand.
thoroughly enjoyed it, man.
I really appreciate that, my friend. As we wrap this up, Steve, we are going to do a segment that is a staple on this channel called Generic Wrestling Questions. Those of you that have seen my interviews before, when I swear I'll ask Steve his favorite match, favorite pay-per-view card, such as Double or Nothing 2019, for example, favorite wrestlers entrance team, favorite tag team, and the biggest generic question of all, guys, his favorite wrestler of all time. Basically, questions I assume you guys might ask him in his Q&As and things like that. So now he'll have a place to be like, guys, I've answered this. Go watch this. So, what's your favorite match of all time?
Right, favorite match of all time for me. I'm going to go with WrestleMania 28. End of an era. We've got Undertaker versus Triple H, Shawn Michaels, special guest referee, inside Hell in a Cell. Everything that I love about pro wrestling in one. The story throughout the match, the fact that it'd gone through 4 WrestleManias, Taker versus Shawn 25, ending Shawn's career 26. Triple H not getting the job done, but taking Taker out. We had to go out on a stretcher 27. So just having that moment with the streak actually end at 28. There's this moment in the match where Shawn is not impartial as a referee. He gives a super kick to Undertaker, and then gets put into a pedigree by Triple H, and the 2 count and Taker kicks out. I'm getting goosebumps talking about this, and the way that Shawn just sort of like throws himself into the corner, shock on his face, the facial, the crowd reaction, everything. I've never felt more alive as a wrestling fan in that moment, and I think it's the most complete, perfect match when you add spectacle, sports, entertainment, and everything around it.
That's really, really cool. So you talked about that is I think, and you probably agree because it's your favorite match,
Yeah.
best near fall in pro wrestling history.
I think it's certainly in the conversation. Like I said, it's my go-to. So, yeah, I think it just might be.
What about your favorite pay-per-view card, my friend?
Oh, look, this is you say generic. It's probably a generic answer, but WrestleMania X7 is my favorite show of all
Yeah.
time. I think it's the go-to. The thing is, it's not necessarily the greatest in-ring wrestling show ever, but when you look at the spectacle and the time period, if you were there and you understood the fact of WCW was bought out by WWE a week prior. ECW had gone out of business, and like we'd gone through this wild ride of like Monday Night Wars week after week of things, wrestlers switching shows and what can they do to improve things. WWE looking like they're going down the pound to the NWO, to fighting back with Austin and Tyson, Vince and Austin, to getting to that point. And it was just like a culmination of like the end. And when you have like then these performers coming through as well, with like TLC 2 was birthed there, which we've had about 50 million TLC matches since, and I still think that's probably the best one. You got the likes of Jericho winning the IC title, Taker versus Triple H, fun enough, is on this show as well. They do it twice more. So there's so many great things, great variety. Even the gimmick battle royal was fun. Raven always blew out the blimmin' electricity on the show as well in a hardcore match
Oh
backstage. There's
yeah.
just everything on this show. It's variety, fun, and just that feeling of that time and that moment. It's a perfect show from top to bottom.
That's really, really cool. What about your favorite wrestler's entrance theme?
Oh, this is a tough one because it depends on the era, it depends on the moment. But like, I'm a bit of a sucker for the modern day entrance. I'm not gonna lie. I mean I love CM Punk's entrance just because Living Color is just so fitting of him. But and I'm a big CM Punk fan as well. But you know what? I'm gonna give it to going to give it to Cody. I'm going to give it to Cody because I think Kingdom is just an amazing song. It it's much older than a lot of people probably realize. Obviously, it's been his song since the moment he left WWE, since Stardust went into the dust. The American Nightmare was born, and even through Ring of Honor Japan and wherever else used that song, it's been AEW as well. It's been his theme, and since coming back to WWE, it's immortalized him to be the guy. I love Jey Uso's entrance as well, but the only issue I have with Jey Uso's entrance is that now he does encores. I think encores is when you're going to start getting sick of that thing. But I mean, it's like a rock concert every time the dude comes out as well. But final answer, I'll give it to Cody.
I think, just quickly, what's so cool about Cody's entrance, I saw this clip in an interview recently where Downstate were like, yeah, I'm not coming back. He said to Downstate, yeah, I'm not coming back to WWE unless you let me use this theme.
Yeah, yeah. And you can see how well it's connected and how well it's worked as well. Cody coming back has been the full package. He did everything he probably wanted and needed to do outside of WWE in the time he was away. And I mean, how unfortunate it was 3 months coming back into the company with the ripped pectoral with Seth Rollins. But I mean, talk about being used to your advantage. The second the guy came back to win the Royal Rumble, to go onto that story, to that journey to finish the story. Cody's the guy now. I do think though he may be a bad guy soon though. I will say that.
Interesting. You say that pec injury was a bad idea. This is just my take, right? I wonder if he didn't have that pec injury, which gave him, was it like 6 to 8 months off TV?
8, yeah.
6 to 8 months off TV, right? He may have fallen into that AEW trap again, have become the corny Cena, the Cena to the point that it would almost become corny and like the fans would have been sick of him. That's just my take.
I have an agreement with you on that. I mean, I felt it was unfortunate, but I do think that I will go and say as well that I think you're right that it gave him. WWE has an awkward moment in the calendar between SummerSlam and Royal Rumble where it feels sometimes they don't quite know what to do.
Spinning
And like
wheels
you said,
is what I call it.
yeah, and I think sometimes certain things, if not booked correctly, I mean, we were still in. Was we still in the Vince era? I think we changed over during Cody's injury.
I
But
feel
there,
like no, I feel like Hell in a Cell was Vince's last pay-per-view.
that was his last. Okay, so he survived the Vince era, but I would agree with you that like it's certainly it may have helped him a little bit because he had that gap between the awkward period. So to come back at the Rumble, be in a hot streak, to then lose in the main event of WrestleMania, it felt like a bad idea at the time. But when you move on to WrestleMania 40, I mean, come on, it was perfection the way that was done in the end.
I didn't expect to go on that tangent, but there you go.
There we
Anyway,
are.
who's your favorite tag team, though, Steve?
Oh, I am probably gonna say I've got to say the Dudley Boys. 3D is just an awesome finisher. They've won tag team gold everywhere they've been. Who doesn't love a table break? Hey, they've got Slim Jim slapped all over them these days. I wonder if how that would have been back in the day with a 3D. But yeah, I mean, ultimately, I think the Dudley Boys would be my pick, and they're 1/3 of that TLC trio as well.
That's really cool. And then finally, Steve, the biggest generic question, in my opinion: who's your favorite overall wrestler of all time?
Of all time. So can I be a bit cheeky and give two names here? Because I
Well,
kind
of
of have
course you
to.
can, sir.
Kind of have to. So Rob Van Dam, from the minute I saw him on Monday Night Raw in 97, I was like, who's this guy? Like, because he just stood out. He's so athletic, so different. And we're talking 97, like he wrestled like we see wrestlers today back then. And I just found that so intriguing. To then go and see his work in ECW, where like he would do moves like the Van Daminator, throwing the chair up and doing the spinning kick into the face, to the Van Terminator, which we now see Shane McMahon do more often than anyone else. But still, RVD for me was just, he was so ahead of his time. And when he came into WWE, I just was on the bandwagon. I was always like, RVD is like the coolest. He never really got to cut the promos the same in WWE like he did in ECW, but yeah, the dude was such a special talent, and you can see the influence he has on people today. But the other answer has to be Shawn Michaels. I mean, God, Shawn Michaels might be the most gifted, perfect performer of all time. I mean, the guy can have a 5-star match and he can get people captivated into the story. He has a way of making his face where you just grip into everything he's doing. Where if he wants to be sad, you feel it through the TV screen. If he's happy, you feel it. If he wants to be mid-90s insane DX D-bag, he will be that as well. And you feel every emotion he's going through. Great stories, great in-ring performer. Many would have said that his 90s work couldn't be topped. And then after a 4-year injury, he comes back at SummerSlam 2002, have the match with Triple H, as a run for another 8 years. And you could argue those 8 years are even better than the 90s. So, I mean, how can I not give Sean a mention?
I'm going to put you on the spot. Which era is better, my friend?
Ah, painful. Look, Attitude Era is the most popular era. My favorite era is the Ruthless Aggression era. Yes, it's
I think I
crazy.
phrased that question wrong, but carry
Go
on.
for it. Go. Let's phrase it the way you want it then.
So I meant which era of Shawn Michaels was better?
Fair enough. I will say the second run because the first run, yes, the boyhood dream came true. He won the belt at WrestleMania. And that was so special at the time. I was a big fan of that moment. Not such a big fan of the Iron Man match, but still come away from that. But like he was the guy for a period. But in 2002, when he came back, he only won the title, I think, once.
Yep.
And it was
Only
for like
that 2002 Elimination Chamber.
that's the one. Yeah, the one with the awful brown trunks.
Yep.
And I think he lost it like a month later and he
He
never
did,
won
yeah.
it again. But he put so many people over. He had so many great matches. And I don't know, just everything he did was gold. I mean, I thoroughly loved 2 feuds of his with Chris Jericho. One in 2003, leading into WrestleMania 19. Another in 2008, the No Mercy, I want to say TLC match they had was phenomenal. So yeah, I mean, there's great stuff. And I mentioned as well, like even when he's not an in-ring performer, for goodness sakes, the guy's doing stuff in my favorite match of all time as a special guest referee. Sean's just the guy.
Mm. What is your thought? I hate to bring the mood down as we wrap this up. Is 2018 comeback?
Mm, I mean, 2018 was better than 2019, so I mean, I can suffer 2018 a bit more.
I'll give you that. Fair enough. As we wrap this up, Steve, obviously, I want to say thank you for a great conversation, my friend. But the question I end this show on is I believe as YouTubers, podcasters, even just people with social media, in some, uh, we're all sort of going to live forever in a very, very weird way, if you think about the word. So, what is
Yeah.
one piece of content you're like, please remember me for that? And then what is one that you're like, no, I'm good. You can forget about that.
I mean, if there's bad content, then I've probably blocked it out. But yeah, I would say that content I'm proud of. God, I mean, the fantasy booking videos I always enjoy. I would say that's one. I tell you what, there's one video out there. It's not even on my channel, but I really like it. It's a channel called Rated R for Wrestling. It's
Mm.
a retro review for WrestleMania 9, deemed as one of the worst WrestleManias of all time. It's a fun stream. It's a really fun stream to go and watch. And I remember giving a lot of my ideas of how that WrestleMania can be improved. And I think a lot of people seem to agree with the ideas that were watching on that video on that particular time and liked those ideas. And I remember that video helped open a few doors of a few more content creators I got to meet through it. So that one's certainly one to go there. So on my channel, a lot of the conversation over Enix, Steve, if you have the opportunity to check out a Q&A, obviously the more topical, probably the more better for you to watch now because it's relevant. So you probably understand where we're going with things. If you're watching something from 2 years ago, you might not care why Karrion Kross should be pushed. Maybe you do at this particular moment, but you get my point of view. So
Yeah.
I would say the Q&As, they're a fun ride. You get some questions that are topical and on point of probably things you want to talk about, but you get some wacky stuff as well. But it leads you in fun directions that you wouldn't expect to go through. So those are the ones I'd recommend going checking out. One to not go and check out, my God, I would say, you know what, the really early content, purely on the basis that I think I'm a guy at that point that, if I really want to be brutally honest with myself, is probably looking for clicks. He's probably looking to find a way to get found. So he's probably talking about stuff, but not probably the type of content that I would want to be talking about today. So, and that stuff's still there. I didn't get rid of that stuff because that's part of my journey. It's part of who I am. So it's a reminder of where I was then and where I am now.
That's a beautiful way to end this, if I'm honest, Steve. But as we do, please promote yourself, my friend. Where can the good people find you, your work, etc.?
Well, first off, thank you for having me on your channel, Tom. It's been a lot of fun doing this, so I really, really appreciate it. And I want everyone to subscribe to your channel here on YouTube because you do some fantastic work. You've had some great people on this channel as well. I'm very blessed to be now someone that could be saying I've been on that lineup as well that's been on this channel. But for those that want to go and find me, SCW, the wrestling channel, is where you can find me on YouTube, as well as you can find me on TikTok as well, Instagram, pretty much, yeah, just get involved on comment on a lot of videos because that's what I like to do. I like interaction. I'm even getting to the point with some content where I just want to ask the questions to get your feedback because I like to know what people are thinking about certain topics. So, but if you're into predictions, you're into reviews, fantasy booking, yeah, it's a place to be. Retro content as well. We like to try and do at least one retro review a month. So, yeah, it's a fun place to be. If you've got the time, feel free to go and check it out.
It's well worth doing, guys. One of the hardest working people in this space, but one of the nicest as well. So if you guys like this, make sure you like, share, and subscribe to Tom Talks Rubbish on YouTube. Follow me on Twitter or X at Tom Talks Rubbish, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye now.
Thanks for watching this Tom Talks Rubbish conversation. Before you go, please make sure you leave a like on the video, share it around, and subscribe to Tom Talks Rubbish on YouTube, as well as follow Tom Talks Rubbish on Twitter/X.